We've spoken a little bit about a few strategies for remembering and practicing your chords. Probably the best way to do it is to play your songs. Every time we learn a new song, one of the designs of that song might be to learn a new chord. Every time you pick up a new chord, you open up a new horizon for different keys and different songs. So you can learn and practice your chords in the context of those songs. Another way we've done it is to go through the primary chord chart, learn your 1, 4, 5 in certain keys, and keep developing your keys by adding one chord at a time. One of the best ways there to work on each chord is to find out the other primary chords it travels with so that you can practice from one to the other and get the most common chord changes down. We also looked at putting all the diatonic chords together, the 3 major chords and the 3 minor chords in each key, so far still eliminating the diminished chord. There we could go alphabetically, say we went from C to D minor, to E minor, to F, to G or G7, to A minor in the key of C. Then we put those in a proper order, descending in fifths. G7s like to land on Cs, Cs like to land on Fs, and so on. So we could practice them in those orders. A couple of things I find almost useless to a beginner guitarist would be the 101 magic chord chart that people will put on their wall, or a fretboard diagram that shows every single fret, every sharp and flat. These things are about as good as an encyclopedia set or a dictionary. They're great references when you know which chord you want to work on, but not really that useful when you're trying to learn which chords to be doing in the first place. So once in a while, every month or so, I like to stop when students don't have a particular goal in mind that particular day to look at a chord inventory. We'll just start talking about the chords they know and adding them up. At first, your chord inventory was quite small. We learned this G, G7, a 3-string C, D7, which lands us back on G. And so you would do that daily, you'd practice that little progression. As we got better at that, we added A minors, moved all those fingers down to an E chord. Once we were on E, we played around. We could see if you removed your ring finger, you'd have an E7. If you removed your pointer, you'd have an E minor. So we were setting the stage there for practicing the chords you knew, going through them in an order that made sense, and actually seeing 2 different methods for practicing. One is actually quite musical. It comes from one key. The other was when we got to E, we stayed on E and we investigate the various kinds of E's that we had. So once in a while, that's exactly what I'll do with students. I'll just go alphabetically with them just to cover all their chords. I've written a bunch of them here. I've got about 20. You've probably learned with me in these 60-odd lessons, 25 or 30 of them. So in order to remember each, I'd go through and say, what are all your A chords? And we demonstrate them. All of your B chords, all of your C chords. You'd have one section in your book for chords. Usually I start at the back page. It's just like when we did science or math where we'd have a formula page. This page would be devoted to your chords. As you learn each one, you add it there. You probably get up to 2 or 3 pages. Apart from physically practicing them and practicing songs, I would actually have you write them out as well. When you don't remember a chord, it's really great to be writing it out, drawing your chord diagram and filling in the fingers. This is a type of visualization, and you'll get further with all types of learning by doing visualization. Sometimes I'll actually have people just sit and describe how to play each chord, which finger goes where, because we don't actually know that. We learn how to plant fingers and then wedge our other fingers off from them, but we couldn't actually say which finger is on which string. So just quickly going through this, you would be building this up every time you get a new chord, and after a little while you go through and just rehearse and make sure that you're keeping track of all the chords you know. So here's our first G. We turned that into a larger G where we grabbed G's on both ends. Then we added this finger on the 5th string, and we have a G where we can have a G and a D on the top strings. Each of those G's is a valuable chord to know. G here, there, with all the fingers. You may not find that you have to draw each one, but you would have a couple of them drawn for certain. G7, right now we only know one. We took this finger and extended across the diagonal. And you can practice going from G's to G7s. You may have your ring finger on your G and turn the whole chord around to G7. Or after a time, you might realize that you don't need to turn it around. Just add your pinky to the top G note and your pointer to the G7. These are little advantages you learn when you practice chords in groups. This time I'm not practicing them in a scale, but all of the Gs that I know. Sitting and looking at them together and developing a system for getting from one to the other. From this G7, we could go to our C, extend it to our diagonal chord, this fuller C, and we can also do a Green Day C. If you want to know, that one is called a C add 9. So we've got a normal diagonal C and a C with these two notes that we saw in our G chord. Actually, one other thing you can do with C's that we have run into at one point is leaving your pinky on the top G. There's no other name for that one, that's still just a C chord, as G is a normal note in a C chord. Obviously, I haven't put my chart in alphabetical order because I was talking about the first order of chords we learned, but I would be going from C's to D's now. D7 we learned early. We can turn the triangle around for a D chord, found down here. We lower the F sharp to an F to make D minor. We remove the finger from the first string for a chord we learned in Bryan Adams' Summer of '69, the D sus2, or often the D add 9, and the D chord with the pinky on the G for the D sus4. So D sus4, D, D sus2, D minor, D7. You could practice all of those, make sure they're all distinct in your mind and that you have a fingering for each. Whenever you go through an inventory like this, you'll find a few blank spots and a few chords you don't remember. So that's a good time to practice those. Pick up one at a time. Don't try to learn all 20, or if you forgot 5 of them, don't try to learn 5 of them one day. Pick up one and then maybe put it in a key or go back to a song that used it that maybe you're not practicing anymore. Alphabetically, let's go to the E chord. We have E minors, E majors, E7s without the ring finger, and also again holding on to those G and D notes, the Green Day notes, we have a E minor 7. Then you could actually take a quick peek at the 3 or 4 chords we've learned that do that. G, E minor 7, C, add 9 or add 2, D sus4, or dump that and just go to D, and see all those chords together one more time. This brings us to F. I've only drawn the small diagonal, but you might still be at a position where you're not covering the first string, and it's an F major 7. If you have both of them, you should label them both. F major 7 has value on its own, and you need to know it by itself. We've got F major 7 with the open first string, F, where you lay the pointer down, another F, F over C if you want to call it that, where we add another bass note, and the F bar chord. Actually, why don't I show you each of those? So here's F major 7 with the open first string. You should have that written in your book and labeled F major 7. There's F with the complete little bar there. Here's F when you add the ring finger and third finger on the 5th and 4th strings. And then one of your general Fs when you bar across. So alphabetically, we've gone C, D, E, and F. We've already done Gs, so let's go look at A's. We saw we had A minor. We've looked at A major. You could practice whichever various fingerings you like on that, including a bar, which means you don't strum the first string. Then we did an A sus4. When you add the D note, we saw that in the Bryan Adams song. A sus2, when you remove the ring finger and have an open B string. And A7. The reason I didn't start on A immediately when I said I was going to go alphabetically is we leave some B's for later. You notice we avoided them for some time. When it got inevitable that we had to play them, we picked up first this little diagonal B minor. It's used in the keys of G and D and even A, which we learned fairly early on, so we did have to start getting our hands on this. So it's a 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fret with an open 4th string. Then we added another note to the bass note of that, just like we did with F. So we had 2, 3, 4, and 4. And then you might as well bar across. You can grab the 5th string and play those 4 strings, or land that finger down on the first string and you got all 5. So there's that barred B minor. B flat is a totally different chord. It's a major chord, not a minor chord, and it's built on B flat, not on B. The first one we learned, and probably the only one we've done so far, is a first finger on the first fret. The next 2 strings have 3rd fret notes, D and B flat, and we can hit another D if we want on the 4th string. I use that B flat a lot in the keys of F or D minor. It moves nicely from either one. Once again, though, we can build that chord up. We can add another finger to it. Notice this looks exactly like an A chord, 1 fret higher. So you've got your B flat with the F on the top string, an F, B flat, and D in the 3rd fret, and then of course you can bar it and grab the B flat on the low string. With each of these chords, we also have bar chord versions. So this B flat, you could play a B flat 5, you could play the B flat and an F note on the next string. An F and a B flat is still a power chord. I could bar those 3 notes and get a really good B flat without building it up with these 3 stacked fingers. All of those are valuable. You should be practicing each. If you've gone through each one, you should have them all drawn and all under practice. Here's your complete version of that. Notice many chords I'm not doing a whole bunch of options. A B flat chord could have a sus4, a sus2, a dominant 7, just like A. But when we're running into it in songs, the first thing we need to be able to do is just get our hands on a B flat. So we've gone C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. We've covered all our chords now. You'd write them out several times sometimes to practice them, just to do memory work. If you're trying to learn guitar, treat it like any other subject. Actually study it. Write out the items that you're trying to remember, draw them, think about them, rehearse them over and over again. You can practice about once a month, just like we just did. And when you find a chord you don't know, then you have to practice it a little bit. I like to see them in relationship to each other, all the A's together. That helps you not only memorize them, but to listen to the differences between chords. There's a major chord, you lower the 3rd, and you have a minor chord. Major, lower the root to a flat 7, you have a dominant 7. Raise the 3 to a 4 and you have a sus4. Very distinctive sound that usually wants to resolve to the 3 again. Sus2 floats there really pretty on its own, but does generally want to get up to a 3 as well. So that I usually drop on students when I come and ask them, what would you like to do today? And they have no idea. Once in a while, this is a great exercise to work through. So I'll see you guys later. Have a good one.